Welcome to the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong, and today we have another great guest. He comes highly recommended by a lot of individuals and organizations, especially those who has helped to become the very, very best. He has a very unique skill set of teaching and also consulting and coaching and leadership. Very practical, and of course, he has a very good historical perspective as well when it comes to leadership. He has experience in military leadership, corporate work, and of course, consulting careers. He's worked with thousands and thousands of individuals and organizations at all levels to help them become more and more successful. He is the author of two books, The Liquid Accordion and The Leadership Flow, Perfectly Square. So please welcome Master Certified Coach, leadership expert, genius behind Leadership Flow, Mr. CROFT Edwards.
Well, thank you, Fong. Great to be here.
Hey, thanks for being here. Always a joy speaking with people who has that kind of credential and, of course, willingness to share and add value to others and helping others become more and more successful. So please share with us, how did you become this individual? How did you become this person who's so good at leadership and is able to help others become more as well?
Well, I thank you for that compliment. The story actually begins almost 50 years ago. So I was a 10-year-old kid. And it was a summer day, and my mom worked for a U.S. senator at the time. And that summer day, I didn't have anything to do. And because of that, she had an event she had to go to at Fort Bliss, Texas. And we went, and the guest of honor was World War II General Omar Bradley. And here I was, this 10-year-old kid, kind of just standing around, keeping myself busy. And they literally wheeled General Bradley out the point because he was in a wheelchair then. And there was this reverential clap for him. And it was a clap that nobody else got. And even as a 10-year-old kid, I was mesmerized by it. So because of that, went out, checked out his autobiography, A Soldier Story, read it cover to cover as a 10-year-old. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it piqued in me a fundamental question I've been studying ever since, which is, why was he, or any leader for that matter, successful? And that's evolved into, what is this thing called leadership? And then more specifically, how do you do that? And then that path has led me to almost 25 years leadership in the military, to your point, and then down that path of coaching. And really, another big event was when I stumbled into a methodology called ontological coaching, which ontology is the study of being human. And that path just kept leading me deeper and deeper and studying, why are individuals or leaders successful.
That is awesome. I can't imagine a 10-year-old picking up an autobiography. At that time, that book must have felt like
Yeah,
very, very
it was.
thick.
Yeah, but it was easy reading because it was so interesting to me. And then I just kind of, that led to other stories and other leaders, and here I am 50 some odd years later.
So what was your childhood growing up? I mean, like lots of other kids at that time could barely like pick up a book this thick versus around
Yeah.
like an autobiography with that type of vocabulary and kind of addiction. So how did you navigate through your childhood with that type of mentality? You must have
Uh,
felt like
you know,
everybody's behind you.
no, I did. I was a little different, but that was okay. I was always lucky. I kind of knew who I was. And I just, I found so much excitement in books. As an example, I have a master's of Civil War history for the U.S. Civil War. And in the program, I read over 90 books. And at one point, like, I had a class just on Ulysses S. Grant, and I was reading four biographies at the same time. So I just have always had this kind of curiosity around, what is this thing called leadership? Why are certain people successful? And then I feel like what I bring now to my clients is I have an ability to see leadership in fundamentally three domains. In language, like, what are the conversations that leaders have? How do we actually use language to create results? Moods and emotions, because as human beings, we are emotional beings. We live in emotions. We're always in an emotional state. And then really where my expertise is in what's called somatics, which soma is Greek for the body at its wholeness, which is, we have a body. How does the body of a leader show up, right? We talk about leadership presence, but literally you can look at, how would a leader stand, right? You think of Superman stands like this. He doesn't stand like this, right? And so that's always just been an interest, and that's what I did, and, kind of did my own thing.
Well, let's just jump into the whole all those leadership qualities. Like, what have you found that most leadership individuals do not have, like leader individuals do not have? And how do they become a better leader by implementing those three core things that you just mentioned?
Well, so we start with this. I always start with this idea that the most difficult person I have to lead is myself. I have to get me out of the way. But that in itself can be a lifelong journey, right? And then when we look in the domains, language, well, there's only about six things we can do in language, but it's how well do I do them? Most people, if I ask them what about language, they go, well, sentences, paragraphs, whatever. But there are what we call speech acts. And this a lot of this research comes from philosophy, but what do we do in language? Well, we make requests, we make offers. You and I had a promise to do this call, right? We have assessments, our opinions and judgments. There's assertions, which are fact, right? And so we can get into all of these things and look at, oh, there's a missing request, or oh, that leader hasn't made a declaration. And then emotionally, moods and emotions, we're always in an emotional state. Well, the emotional state I'm in matters. If I'm in resignation and we're going to have a conversation about, well, I don't really think we can do this, that's a different conversation than I'm in ambition. Hey, Fong, let's create a new future, right? And then somatically, this thing, the title of my second book is The Liquid Accordion. This liquid accordion that we are, that literally navigates the world by the shape we're in, then determines what conversations are possible, right? And so that's where I study and I spend those time. And leaders, most of them are blind to that, right? And it's not a bad thing. It's just we're blind. We can't see what we can't see. So I may not be able to see that I walk into a room, the body is so armored up and so tense that I can't have intimate conversations with my team.
Right.
Or I show up in a mood of resentment. And I think it's fact, right? But that's just how I see the world. So we look at this idea. I see the world not as it is. I see the world as I am. And then help leaders, how do I show up either one of those three domains, and then how do I shift those domains?
I would think that when you are asked to go into an organization or a company to help with their leadership team and coach them and consult with them, that usually there's a leadership team that's in place for a period of time. And
Mhm.
certain things have already worked, and the reason why they're asking you is because maybe some things aren't working right. Have
Yeah.
you found that it's difficult to kind of get your points across sometimes because it's been in place for so long and parts of it has been working and they're just thinking, oh, we just need a little tweak here and there, but you're coming in with these other ideas that they've never even thought about because they're blind to it.
Well, what I try to do, the U.S. Army Special Forces has a motto called, or a way of doing things. It's called going native. So what I try to do is go into an organization and meet them where they are. And I'm observing, are they actually open to learning? Because a large thing we have to explore is, are you open to being a beginner and being a learner? Because if you're not, I could have the most brilliant idea here, but if you're closed off to it, it doesn't matter. So usually what we start with is, what does it mean to be a beginner and a learner? And fortunately for me, I think over time, I've learned how to use their body, their story, their emotions, not necessarily against them, but it's almost like I can help them trip over themselves to see, oh, wow, you did that to yourself. Maybe it's time to try something new.
When it comes to leaders, how much of people are born leaders is true?
I'm a student of behaviors,
Mhm.
right? And so when we look at that, obviously we all have our own unique DNA and so on and so forth. So we do have some nature piece, right? I'm born with genes that allow me to be 6'4" or 5'8". Either way, it's destiny. But a lot of my belief is that we're historical beings. We don't actually, if you think about it, I don't, at age 18, I didn't get to go and become sentient and go, oh, this is how I want to see the world. No, it started before I was born. It started when I was in my mother's womb, when I was a baby. I was taught how to see the world. So if I was taught that I am a leader, or I was taught certain things, oh, that's effective, I'm more likely going to be competent at it. But most, I'm a product of the United States military. And one of the beautiful things I think the U.S. Army does is they build leaders. They have a way to train them to do that. But I promise you, the leader that I showed up at as age 18 and the one I am today are very different because I learned things. I got out of my own way, so to speak. So there is a little bit of the nature. There's a lot of the nurture, though. How
Mm.
am I taught? What am I taught to do? And so I lean more towards that side.
Mm. Have you worked with individuals who like they really want to become great leaders, yet they're like timid, they're shy, and they're afraid to kind of put their foot forward and volunteer for things or say yes to things or
Yeah.
be in front of people? How do you help them break out of that shell and become a leader in their own right?
So usually where we start is the idea of helping them to observe their observer, having them step back and look at themselves and going, oh, okay, how are you showing up in that?
Mhm.
And then looking, for instance, if I'm real timid, notice how, I don't know if you noticed what you did, you said real timid. That's a somatic experience, right? So if I'm timid, I'm literally saying to the world, I don't want to be seen, right? Again, go back to Superman. How does Superman see it?
Right.
Oh, here I am. So we look at how are you showing up, and then how would you like to show up, or how would it serve you to show up so that in a situation you can do that. But remember, we're only good at what we practice, right? So if I'm timid, I'm actually really good at it. And so you say, well, Croft, show up an ambition. I go, I don't know how to do that. So we have to have that beginner mindset again to go, oh, yeah, I'm going to try this and I may not be good at it.
Mm.
And I'm going to practice and I'm going to practice and I'm going to practice. I always marvel. A lot of times I'll have like a younger leader that they've got an issue with their team. They're going, oh, I just want them to get solved, right? But if I ask them, what do you want to be? I want to be a great leader higher up. And I'm like, well, great. Learn how to be a leader at this level. If you can't manage this team at this level, how would you be able to manage them at this level? The team you have right now is actually a gift. It's a place to practice. It's a place to learn difficult conversations. One of my teachers always used to say, these things are actually quite simple if you're competent at it. Right. So anything we're competent at is simple. But how do we get competent at something? We usually start as incompetent. It's not simple. And so we have to learn how to do it through practice.
Now, for somebody who has a history, uh, expertise and has studied leaders of all the great times and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and looking at leaders today and you yourself as a leader, have you found that the way you lead becomes different and is it more effective? So for instance, back in like years ago, you might be able to use a lot of fear tactics and a lot of
Mhm.
negative reinforcement to get what you want from your team. Whereas now it's a little bit more frowned upon.
Yeah.
What works better? What's more effective? What is actually kind of correct? Have you seen it kind of gone too much one way, or has it not gone that way enough?
No, I would actually, yes, it evolves. But remember, we make the assessment around leadership in kind of my field. We look at the idea management is the authority granted to an individual by the organization. My organization goes, here you go, Croft, here's a team. But if I only use that, what I'm going to get is compliance. I'm going to get this much more than the bare minimum. The distinction we use for leadership is the authority granted to an individual by the follower. So only a follower can say, you're somebody that I see as a leader, and you're somebody I'm going to give more to. But the thing is there, though, what I see as a leader and what you see as a leader may be very different. So there isn't a one size fits all leader that can just show up because leadership in this domain may work great, but do the same thing in this domain, it may not work. So it is that ability for a leader to assess where is my team? How do I need to show up as a leader so that I can actually instill in them something that will lead to more commitment versus compliance. And that can be an art. And, I think you could take leaders throughout history and you could put them in a different situation and maybe they wouldn't have done as well as they did. It just so happened that the situation, the leader showed up, their skill set fit that. But would they be the same leaders, 60 years from then? Probably not.
Have you found in general what type of leadership is, what kind of leadership style is more effective on a general basis?
Well, it to me, it's that I'm meeting the needs of my followers.
Hmm.
So as a follower, I have a need that I need taken care of. So I'm going to see somebody as a leader that I assess, whether I'm conscious of it or not, they're going to help me create the future I want.
Hmm.
So there, it isn't a style other than I meet the needs of the people following me to where they say, you're somebody I want to see as a leader. I'm in the United States right now, and Donald Trump. If I mention Donald Trump, most no, you can't say that. Well, I could find roughly 50% of America that would say, yes, he's a leader. I could find roughly 50% say, no, he's not. He's the
Right.
Antichrist, right? He's the same actual human being, but it's the observer I am. I see in Donald Trump something that I care about or something I don't care about, right? And so there isn't this one unanimous, oh, that's a perfect leader, because every follower has different concerns and needs.
Would you, what would you say about the fact that some leaders would come up with different styles for different groups and different audiences? And is there a line between doing that versus being authentic?
Well, what is authentic, right? Go back to that idea. What is authentic? Well, I
Mm.
was taught how to be this, so am I authentic? There is like leadership agility, situational leadership kind of things. I assess that an effective leader is going to adapt their style to the situation,
Mm.
right? Maybe I need to be a little bit more of an authoritarianism type leader in this situation. Maybe I need to be more open in this. So I assess that effective leaders can adapt. I don't assess that I necessarily they get away from their values, their core, what they stand for, their beliefs, but they can change how they show up. The military is a great example. I think if you ask most people in the military, they think it's this George Patton yelling and boom, boom, boom. I saw, I've seen some of the most compassionate leaders I've ever experienced. I've seen leaders that cried in front of their formations because they cared so much about something, and they inspired their troops. So even in something like the military, there can be just so many different styles of leadership. And sometimes those styles will be effective in this situation, but they're not in the next. And so effective leaders learn how do I adapt that so that collectively I can get my organization to where we need to go.
I see. Now, lots of people who are either leaders themselves or followers themselves, we all have some sort of person that we look up to, some type of leadership style that we kind of gravitate
Mhm.
to. For someone like yourself who's an expert in this field, what what type of style do you gravitate to? What do you get engaged with the most? Is it the whole military style, dictate like very strong and vocal, or the type that's very oh, we can do this, we can kind of consult about this and talk about things and whatnot. So what's the one that you
Well,
gravitate to?
so I would say actually I don't know that I have a preference. I spend a lot of time in organizations all over the spectrum. So I'm dealing with different styles of leadership, and I'm aware that that style is their style. I don't judge it as like right or wrong, good or bad, but I simply observe, is it aligned with what they're trying to create and the organization they're trying to lead? There's some great theories out there. One of them, I'm a big student of what's called spiral dynamics, which won't get too nerded out on it, but it's a way that individuals and organizations evolve. Think of a conch shell that evolves, and one of the ideas in there is that as a leader, I need to be about a half a step ahead of the people I'm leading. But I can be anywhere on the spectrum because even very barbaric type organizations, for lack of a better word, need a leader. But the leadership behavior at that level is going to be different than over here. So there's not necessarily, what I try to do is I try to meet the organization where they are. And then I take pride in, I think what I'm pretty adept at is I can show up where they are. In spiral dynamics, there's a concept called spiral wizardry. Can you show up in the domain that's necessary? So I've coached individuals 8 miles underground in a coal mine at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've coached, deans of medical schools and Navy admirals. So it's all over the spectrum. And what I try to do is show up as the situation dictates, not necessarily what's easiest for me or what do I want to do, but can I show up in a way that they're going to respond to? And go back to that definition of leadership. They're going to grant me some leadership authority, and they're going to say, in you, we see a future that takes care of what we care about.
Now, from my experience, people who are successful like yourself and who has been able to help lots of other people become successful has gone through a lot of ups and downs themselves. And the biggest difference between people like yourself and others is that they're able to take those ups and downs and use it as a learning experience or look at it from a positive standpoint. So for
Mhm.
yourself, what was some of the biggest learning lessons, some of the greatest failures that you have experienced that you've in turn made into great life lessons?
I think I've been fortunate. I don't have like, super, super big failures, but what I have, I think, gotten very good at is treating everything as a practice and looking at trying to be a beginner. And it's okay if I did something that didn't work. Great. Instead of me spending all this energy beating myself up and, oh gosh, I'm bad, oh this, what did I learn? And how do I apply what I learned to try it again?
Mhm.
And so I've been fairly fortunate that my path has been pretty straightforward. It doesn't mean it was easy though. My wife will tell you there have been times when she had to question my ability to be a coach or a consultant because the revenue wasn't there,
Mhm.
right? And so she'd say, "Where's the, how are we going to eat, so to speak, this month?" And I go, "I'm not really sure." But what I think I did is I just kept applying the practice, keep being a beginner, keep trying, and then over time, with any discourse or any discipline, I got better because I practiced.
Mhm. Now, throughout all that practicing, I think a lot of those stories that you've gone through are in your books. Can you share with us how did you arrive at coming up with your two books?
Well, so the first, kind of back to your last question, the first book, I had a huge client, which was a oil refinery, and it was 2016. We were, I had a bunch of stuff scheduled for the rest of 2016. We were planning 2017, and I got a Friday, we were talking about 2017. Monday, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, corporate just cut out all consultants. For the next 6 months, nobody's coming. You're done." And all of a sudden, my calendar went from full and planning the next year to nothing because literally it was all I was doing. And all of a sudden, I had tons of time. And my wife said, "Well, maybe you write a book." I was like, I'm not sure." And what I ended up doing was I said, "You know what? I've got time." And I spent about a week. I didn't tell anybody this. I spent about a week, and we had a farm, and I would just go out every day and work on the farm. But while I was working, I was thinking about, well, if I was going to write a book, what would it be? That kind of stuff. And then finally, I had an idea. I had the book. I had all that. Got up that next Monday morning, wrote chapter one, went out, worked in the pastures, and did stuff on the farm, and thought about, well, what would chapter two be? Next day, got up, wrote chapter two, and little side note, I had written quite a lot at that point. So it wasn't like I was a novice to this. For the Masters of Civil War History, I had written almost 1,000 pages. So I knew how to write so much and did it. And 25 days later, had a book.
Awesome.
Right. The second book, though, just came about as a coach. I'm a mentor coach for a lot of organizations. The area that's interested me the most is the body and somatics, but it was also the area that is the least documented. And if you go and you look and you say, well, I want a good book on being a somatic coach, there are books out there, but they're very theoretical and they're almost more confusing. And so that came about because I would have coachees that would say, how do you coach in the body? Why do you coach in the body? Where do you coach in the body? And then that just kind of came as an idea. But that book, interestingly, took me 5 years to write.
Hmm.
And it was not because I didn't have it. I just kind of, when I'd have time, I'd write and then I'd go, well, what's the next thing? And because I had had the first book, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to rush this one. It'll come when it comes. And it took about 5 years, but it was worth the wait.
Mhm. Could you explain a little bit about the two titles?
Yeah. So leadership flow is my methodology,
Mhm.
right? I'm a big student of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. So if you can pronounce it, you probably can't spell it. And if you can spell it, you probably can't pronounce it. But he's the kind of the godfather of flow. Flow is the ultimate state of performance, that kind of thing. And as I was doing the branding for my company, my branding partner said, "You're a flow junkie." because I was a marathoner. I could spend hours in my wood shop creating, and I said, I don't get that. What is flow? Started studying it, and then I realized the idea for leadership is, how do I create flow in others? How do I create a place where they're so into what they're doing, they're committed to the future? And then that created my methodology. And so the first book, Leadership Flow Perfectly Square, it's the first of potentially 4 other books. But the Leadership Flow is a methodology. Perfectly Square is actually the setting of the story, which is at a woodworking supply store called Perfectly Square. And it's a story kind of like Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, or Who Moved My Cheese. And it just kind of evolves from there. And then Liquid Accordion, the title is literally, again, this idea, we are a liquid accordion. Because if you think about it, we're made up of cells. Right? And one estimate is we're 70 trillion cells. And what do cells fundamentally do? They expand, they contract, and contract. You take cells, they form layers. What do they? Expand and contract. Layers form tubes, expand, contract. Think of veins and the such. Tubes form organs, heart, stomach, lungs. And what happens is muscles also, we're this liquid accordion that navigates the world, right? If I said something that scared you, you would do, your body would contract and expand like this. If you're confident, you're expanded like this. And so this idea, that's how we navigate the world. And so then the book came from this. Then it's fundamentally why we coach in the body, what and where we coach in the body, and then most specifically, how do we do that?
You mentioned coaching about the body a few times now, and so
Yeah.
how does somebody so if somebody coming up to you and go, okay, I need some help, and then you go, okay,
Mhm.
well, the problem is your body's not online. Here are a few tips. What are some of the things that people can do right now with regards to their body that would allow them to become more successful or more healthy?
Well, one of the things, a simple example, we in the book, I talk about what are called pivot points. And there's 4 areas in your body that I point out that have undue influence on your body. And in no particular order, your eyes, your jaw, your hands, and your feet. But a simple example, if you take your jaw right now, completely relax your jaw, okay, just let it hang there. And now I want to challenge you to get angry and get fired up and get motivated, but keep your jaw relaxed.
You can only do it with your eyes now.
Well, but even that, right? I actually couldn't, because if I get motivated, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp my jaw, which does what to all of these muscles? It contracts them, right? Which, if I'm getting ready for a fight, I'm going to do that. Conversely, though, if I relax my jaw, I can't do that. Now, when I clench my jaw, that also, one of the ways moods or the way moods and emotions are created is our body shape creates what are called neural peptides, go to the brain, cause us to want to take this action. So if I'm going to be angry, but I relax my jaw, I can't actually do that. Right? Another example is the hands. Here's a simple example. If you think about your hand, if I take my hand and I clench my fist, I'm engaging my entire core. Conversely, if I relax my hand, my core is relaxed. So if I sit in a meeting with my hands open like this, I take action. Because as humans, one of the first things we do on almost every action when I want to take action is what? Hands. I type, I drive, I sit up. Conversely, if my hands are relaxed, my body's relaxed, because now my whole core is relaxed. So it's just an awareness of how my body shows up. And the beautiful thing about the body is, if I have a relaxed body and I'm focusing on that, 2 things are happening. I'm not focusing on the thing that's causing me the issue. And as my body is relaxed, I can't be angry. So elite performers, in the moment, they're in a body of success. So if you're a basketball person, most people know Michael Jordan, right? If you go to game 7 of the NBA Finals with Jordan had the ball, he was throwing the ball, and in game 7, he would shoot the ball like he shot it a million times. If you or I got thrown that ball in that situation, our body would literally, and we would just miss the shot completely. But why was Jordan successful? It's because he had practiced that so much that his body just took over. So in flow states, what we find is that high elite performers in flow states, their body's actually doing what it just does, right? It looks like they're a kid on the playground because they are. They're relaxed. They're having fun. Most of us, though, when we think about it, we've got that big presentation. What happens? Oh God, my body, right? We get all of our energy in our head, or blah, 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 blah. Well, no wonder it didn't go well, right? But imagine if I showed up like I was showing up when I'm grilling on the grill and I'm relaxed and I'm talking about something I care about. It's going to happen. So the body, I make the statement, it is the holy grail. Shift the body, you shift the observer.
So when it comes to that, do are there things that people can do on a daily basis to kind of exercise that ability? Is it more of a mental thing that they have to practice mentally before? Because like you have to think about it first before you can actually apply it to your body, or is it more of a body thing to overcome the mind?
Well, it's both. It's if you look at martial arts, a lot of my training has a foundation in martial arts. And in martial arts, fundamentally, you train the body by training the mind, and you train the mind by training the body. So to your point, we have to have a practice,
Mhm.
right? So if I want to be an elite performer, leadership, a lot of the leadership training I've had is founded in Aikido. How do I stay very present, committed to what I want to be working on? And that's a practice. So it's not so much that there is the practice or a correct practice, but I have to practice. And remember, if I can't do something in my body, I can't do it. I can't fly. Body doesn't have the ability. But on a simpler level, what if my body, anytime there's an emotional conversation, my body climbs up and now I can't have that. I don't know how to have that conversation. So I have to practice this. So a term sometimes we use is you have to taste the chocolate. Well, what does chocolate taste like? I don't know. You got to taste it. So if I want to be a emotionally resilient leader, I have to be in a body that's emotionally resilient. How do I do that? I have to be in situations where my body is challenged. So like working out, it is a practice. And there is correlation, obviously, whether it's yoga or martial arts or running or whatever it is, there needs to be some somatic practice with it. And then to take it to the leadership piece, how do I connect my mind and my body in that practice? Right. I'll coach like a runner that'll be, they'll struggle in a situation, maybe at work. But then I'll say, so you're a runner though. Yeah. Well, when you're in your ultimate performance in running, how do you stand? Oh, body's up, right? My breathing is deep. But when you're given that speech, where's your body? Oh, it's down. What if you practice this body in that situation? Right? And now I actually can do it because I go, oh, I know how to be confident because I practice that.
Very powerful stuff. And that's one thing where something that works somewhere else that you feel confident in, and you take that and put into something that you're not confident in and apply the same mindset,
Well,
sometimes it makes a
yeah,
big difference.
notice what you just said. Something you're confident in,
Mhm.
something you're not confident in. The thing isn't the issue. It's me. I'm not confident. Oh, well, if I'm not confident, that means I have a body that's not confident.
Mhm.
I have a story that says I can't do this, I'm not good enough, whatever it is. And I'm in an emotional state in that moment. When I am confident, I have a different body, a different story, a different emotion. So, right, it is about being confident, but it isn't the situation. I see this a lot. For instance, people who were, for instance, collegiate athletes or professional athletes, they a lot of times do very well in business after the fact. And I don't know if they're aware of this or not, but I assess what it is it's because they know how to be confident. And then what they just did is they applied those same practices in business. They go to, right?
Yeah.
High performers go to the gym every day. Well, if I want to be a high performer in business, what do I got to do? I got to go to the gym. Well, what's the gym in football? I'm lifting weights, running all those things. What is it in sales? I'm making sales calls. I'm meeting people, all of those things. It's the same thing, just different practices. But high performers practice.
Hmm. Very, very well said. And yeah, I find that that correlation as well. Lots of high performing athletes are able to become very, very successful in life as well because they have that mindset, they have that discipline.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward to today, like you've done a lot. You're very, very successful. You help a lot of other individuals become successful. What's your next big thing? Like, what's on the horizon for you? What's your next thing?
I'm a little bit right now. The next thing is just being right here, being present.
Hmm.
I There's going to be a lot of stuff coming to kind of down the road with the book, and I'll probably do more keynotes and stuff like that. But really, my next big thing is just being present. I'm at a place where I realize, today is Thursday, and we're doing this is the only time I'm going to have this Thursday.
Hmm.
How do I want to be with today? Right? How do I want to be with my wife today? How do I want to be with my daughter? My wife and I are very aware. Our youngest daughter heads off to college in 5 months.
Well,
We only have 5 more months of this. And granted, we'll have some later, but how do I want to be with tonight? I want to make sure I spend time with her. So really for me, the next big thing is just being present and enjoying what I do. I am so blessed. I love what I do. I get up at 4 in the morning without an alarm clock. I go to the gym. We have a small farm, so I go out. I'm outside with the animal. I got it great. So I just try to be in the moment and celebrate that, not take it for granted, be appreciative for what I have. And we'll see. Who knows? I do plan on doing this for a long time. So, in 40 years, when you're still doing your podcast, but it's much, much bigger and all those things, I'd love to come back on and be like, oh my God, 40 years ago, but now you seem ancient. But my goal is that I don't seem ancient, right? I want to live a good life, and that involves, being alive in my body. And so who knows what the future holds, but right now I'll just kind of focus on being here.
awesome stuff. I'll take that rain check for sure. I'll
Yeah.
book you. You
Yeah.
mentioned you have a daughter who's going into college soon. What's your advice for parents out there who wants to like aspire their kids to become better leaders? What's some of the things that they should expose them to or get them accustomed to, get them ready for?
I think I'd have a little bit of a soapbox here. Is that it's the adversity that builds the character kind of stuff. Uh, as parents, especially my generation, we're so afraid to let people fail. Failing is, getting your knuckles scraped up, tripping, getting up. That's actually the skill.
Mhm.
And so I would just say, if they have adversity, well, they got to figure it out, right? And as parents, obviously, you're not going to let them make huge life-altering mistakes, but it's okay to let them fail a test, right?
Mhm.
Because that's going to be where they learn how to study. That's where they're going to be. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to buckle down because if I don't get my grades together, I'm not going to get into the school I want, or I'm not going to get to do what I want. So I'm a fan of letting people fail and let that be the learning.
Awesome. Before I let you go, is
Mhm.
there a final word of advice or message that you want everybody to remember you for?
I think I would just go to that idea. The biggest leadership challenge is yourself,
Mhm.
right? It's so easy to blame somebody else. So easy to blame politicians or the economy or I didn't get this or whatever. But the challenge is the moment I do that, I'm giving up my say to change that.
Mhm.
So get out of your own way. And if you don't like something, have different conversations, show up as a different leader, but don't fall into the trap of victimhood because the problem is you'll always have to be a victim.
Nicely said and great words to live by. Actually, I do have five rapid fire questions for you. Give me
Oh,
the when it
awesome.
comes to
All
mind.
right.
All right,
I'm
so
ready.
you're stranded on the deserted island, one food to eat for the rest of your life, no consequence. You'll still be healthy and fit. What would that one food be?
Oh, I think I'd probably go with cold cereal.
Cold cereal.
Yeah.
You're on a road trip and there's only one song that plays on in your car for hours on end. What's that one song?
I'm on a road trip, probably Amarillo by Morning by George Strait.
Nice choice. Hollywood calls and goes, "Hey, Croft, we love your story. We would love to do a biopic of you. Who would you cast to
Mhm.
play you?"
Oh, shit. I've been told I look a lot like Kevin Bacon. So maybe Kevin Bacon. I don't know.
Kevin Bacon shows up at your door and goes, "Hey, buddy, I got casted to play you. Let's have some fun. Boy, I'm hungry." and you go, hey, no
Mhm.
worries, Kevin, come over. I'll fix you something special. What's that special dish that you could prepare for him?
Probably some sort of Mexican food because we live in New Mexico and it's New Mexican food, not Tex-Mex. It's actual New Mexican food. Or it would be I'll make a brisket on the grill.
Nice. Give me a number from 1 to 5.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the word is whale. And if you had to
Mhm.
use whale as a metaphor for success, how's success like a whale?
Well, you can either find open ocean, or you can be beached. It's up to you.
Nicely done. So that's how success is like a whale. Thank you very much for your stories, your words of advice. Any final words from you? And what's the best way for people to reach out to get your book and chat with you?
Well, the good news about me, I've got one of those weird names, Croft, that not a lot of people are. So if you Google Croft Edwards, you're going to find me. My website is croftandcompany.com. The book is liquidaccordion.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on X, but reach out. Love to have a conversation.
Awesome. One thing about unique names is like when you're young, you're probably like, hey, why did my parents give me this name? And then you
Yeah,
get older, it's like, it's perfect. I'm the only one.
yeah, yeah. My grandkids are going to call me Croft. I've decided that. So I'll be the only one. Yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. So everybody make sure you reach out to Kraft here, pick up his books, chat with him. I'm sure he has a lot of great stories on top of all the stuff that we have talked about here. And until next time, he's Kraft. I'm Fong. Today is the day to unlock your peak potential. We'll see you later.